Hello everyone, welcome back. The picture you are seeing on the screen, it's a former space sergeant who shot two teenagers, including one fatally, after a car alarm when spending over 5 decades behind bars. Watch this video to the end so that you will hear what happened and you will see the judge to pass such judgment against the former sergeant. Don't forget to drop your opinion on what you think might trigger that young man to do such a thing.
It all starts with a sound we've all heard, a car alarm going off in the dead of night. But what followed was a split-second decision to give chase, a choice that would end one young life and, for all intents and purposes, end another. This is the Orris Schur case, and it really makes you ask a tough question. Where exactly is the line between protecting your property and just taking the law into your own hands? 54. Just let that number sit there for a moment. It's not just a number, right? It's a lifetime. Because that's what it represents. 54 years. The prison sentence handed down to a former technical sergeant with the U.S. Space Force. And you have to wonder, how does a military man with that kind of career end up here? To really get a handle on that sentence, we have to rewind all the way back to the beginning. Back to that simple but really jarring sound of a car alarm. Okay, so the scene is Aurora, Colorado. The date is July 5th, 2023. And this is where a chain of decisions begins that sets an absolute tragedy into motion. Arrest Schur, he's 29 years old, and he's woken up by his car alarm. He immediately thinks someone's trying to steal his car. But here's the thing, he doesn't pick up the phone and call the police. No. Instead, he grabs his pistol, gets into his own car, and decides he's going to handle this himself. And that right there, that was the critical choice. Instead of calling for help and letting law enforcement do their job, he chose to engage. He turned a potential property crime into a deadly confrontation. And what came next wasn't just some simple shouting match. No, this turned into a high-stakes pursuit through a neighborhood, with Schur as the one and only pursuer. From there, things just escalated with terrifying speed. Schur wasn't just chasing the other car. He actually started shooting at it. Then the vehicle crashes into a fence, and you'd think, okay, it's over. But it wasn't. As two teenagers scramble out of the wreck and run, he fires his weapon again. In total, after investigating, the authorities figured out that Orris Schur fired 11 shots that night. 11. So after the smoke clears, two very, very different stories start to form. There's the story that the defendant, Schur, told, and then there's the story that the physical evidence at the scene told. And those 11 shots, well, they had absolutely devastating consequences. The driver was just a kid, 13 years old. He was shot in the back and miraculously survived. His passenger, a 14-year-old boy, was shot in the back and the head as he was running away. He did not survive. This brings us right to the heart of the trial. Schur's claim was that this was self-defense. He said he only fired after the teens shot at him. But the investigators, they scoured that entire scene, and they found nothing, and I mean nothing, to back up his story. No weapon, no shell casings, no proof at all that the teenagers were ever armed. And this piece of context is pretty important. The man claiming self-defense wasn't just a civilian with no training. He was an active-duty technical sergeant in the U.S. Space Force. And you can bet that fact played heavily into how his actions were judged. So with these two completely conflicting stories on the table, the whole thing goes to a jury. And they're left with this massive decision. Was this self-defense, or was it murder? The jury's decision was about as clear as it gets. They found Orris Schur guilty of second-degree murder for the death of the 14-year-old. And they found him guilty of second-degree attempted murder for shooting the 13-year-old survivor. After the conviction, the district attorney, Brian Mason, his words really captured the prosecution's entire argument. He said, quote, "This was vigilante violence at its worst, and now a young man is dead." Pretty powerful stuff. He went on to say that the defendant basically took the law into his own hands, deciding to be the judge, the jury, and, well, the executioner, right there on the streets of his own neighborhood. And that brings us right back to where we started this whole thing. 54 years. A sentence that reflects a jury's absolute belief that a line was crossed, a line that turned a pursuit into a murder. So we're all left with this fundamental question, aren't we? I mean, we all want to feel safe. We all want to protect our stuff. But this case is just a stark, tragic reminder of the horrific consequences that can happen when that instinct leads someone to just bypass the law completely. It's a question without any easy answers, but it's one we all really have to think about.